Hello and welcome to another episode of Historic Hindsight. I'm John, that's Tom, and today we're talking about the Iranian missile crisis.
Oh, there's no missiles involved, Johnny, but there's a lot of hostages. A lot of hostages that get taken for 444 days. Imagine that.
Oh, that's
being
over
a prisoner
a year.
in Iran for 444 days.
Well, there were hostages, not prisoners, right?
Yeah.
Were they treated like maybe they got hotel rooms?
They did not get hotel rooms.
No.
I will spoil that right now.
No.
They were in a prison, not hotel rooms. Not comfort
Well,
rooms.
that's kind of prisoners then, I guess.
And basically, it's a bunch of college students' fault that this all happens. So
When was this?
spoiler
What
alert.
year?
1977.
So
the
a bunch
78.
was it a bunch of hippies?
Well, Johnny, let's get in there. We got to paint the picture. We got to go back to do a little Iranian history. Now, I'm going to preface a lot of what I'm going to say here with I'm going to jump over a crap ton of history. There is 444 days of Iranian hostage crisis with massive amounts of negotiation. I'm not going to get into boring detail with that. I'm going to talk about the funny things
This is less
that
informative.
exist out of this.
This is
Yeah,
if you
it's
want
very less-
if you want good quality information about the
Don't come here
Iranian
for
missile
this.
crisis, go somewhere else.
Hostage crisis.
Yes,
Yeah.
hostage crisis of Iranian.
All right.
Iran.
So, background. Gotta jump back to World War II, Johnny. It's World War II. The Nazis are taking over the Middle East. Russia and Britain are very concerned about oil in the Middle East, specifically Iran
Naturally.
has the largest oil reserves. They don't want that to fall in the Nazi hands, and they're afraid that the Shah is he's gonna join with the Nazis, despite the fact that he said, "I will maintain complete neutrality."
I want everybody's money.
Russia
Basically.
winds up with Britain wind up invading Iran to protect them from the Nazis and overthrow their pro-nationalist monarch Reza Shah Pahlavi.
They invaded Iran to protect them from the Nazis.
Yes, they
And
invaded
overthrew
Iran to
their
protect the
government and installed their own for their
Well,
protection.
they overthrew the Shah, the Reza Shah, and they replaced him with his son Muhammad Shah, who's a king. Shah. Pahlavi is his P-A-H-L-A-V-I.
So they installed their guy.
Yep. They installed their guy.
Okay.
And the invasion makes no sense because Russia and Britain are like, we're doing this to prevent you from going with Nazis. But Reza's like, I'm not going with we're independent. We're neutral.
Yeah, we're
and what it
just
really was
chilling.
is he told the Soviet Union, you can't station troops here. You can't move troops through Iran. And you definitely can't train troops in Iran. And that made Stalin a little bit mad. And, there's where we really get the invasion from. But post-war...
Stalin, was he known to have a temper?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. And post-war, surprise, surprise, Britain took over control of the oil fields and made money hand over fist.
Is that
The U.S.
BP?
surprisingly stayed out of this.
Is it British Petroleum BP?
Yeah, it might be partly there. They make record hand over fist profits. They give none of the monies back to the Iranian people.
Sure.
U.S. stays out of the invasion, but they do help with negotiations to get Russia the hell out after World War II's over.
Yeah, so that they can profit as well in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, the allies, all that fun stuff. Oh yeah,
Very good.
very much so. Now, during this post-war period, England's going to make money hand over fist in the oil fields. The U.S. didn't want Iran to fall under Russian control, so obviously their interests are very much aligned in this region as well. So, in 1950, Mohammad Reza, the guy that the Britons instilled, he's going to get into a little power struggle with Mohammad Mosaddegh. We're going to go with last names because, both have Mohammed. It's going to get confusing if I go with first names. So we're going to go with last names. So, Mosaddegh and Reza are into a power struggle. Reza is surprisingly a little progressive for Iran in the 1950s. He likes the idea of giving women some rights. He likes the idea of taking money from the rich, and by rich I mean like the rich people that don't believe in what he believes in, and then giving that back to the people of Iran. And Iran, actually, their economy and stuff booms over the next 20 years. Mosaddegh is more like what you would expect from a very authoritarian Islamic ideology, in that women aren't to have rights. Only Muslims are allowed to have power. That kind of thing. Which is fine. Whatever. Whatever. I don't live there. I don't care. Anyways, so there's a little bit of a power struggle in the 1950s over this, and with help of the CIA and U.S. funneling money, into the region, including potentially selling Reza the printing plates that we use in the United States to print money, which means that they're able to create counterfeits, but that aren't really counterfeits because they're made on our own plates. Right. And there's enough evidence to suggest that this actually happened because, there's an absolute crap ton of counterfeit, damn near perfect counterfeit money in the region, even up through this day, that they probably sold the printing plates to Iran to help them fund.
And this is to install the more. This is all for the more progressive guy who wants women's rights and stuff, right? That's
we'll go with that. Helping? Yeah, it's also the guy that's allowing Britain to stay there with all the oil reserves and giving oil profits to nobody but themselves. Now, Reza, he's the king, the Shah, and Mosaddegh, he's basically like your prime minister, essentially, so he's the civilian end of the government. There is a coup to overthrow Mosaddegh that is led by the CIA, and... Of course. Yeah, in 1953, they conduct the coup.
And then it works because it's the CIA.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the Operation Ajax, where they depose Mosaddegh, get him out of the country, and extend Reza the power to be complete king, who takes on the name Shah of Shah, which is King of Kings.
That's actually that's pretty nice of them. They didn't just go and kill him. They just got rid of him.
Kick him out of the country.
That was very soft of the CIA.
Like I said, underneath Shah's reign, Reza's reign, he's a complete dictator, but he's not the worst dictator that the CIA's put in power. I mean, he really did help Iran grow a little bit. I mean, they did. I mean, women were allowed to wear bikinis for a little bit there in Iran. It's kind of crazy.
Like you can find pictures, and it was very Western. I mean, it looked very much like
looked like a California
LA
beach.
Or New York or whatever.
The CIA is going to spend the next 2 decades training Iranian special police, setting up the U.S. embassy inside Iran as basically a CIA headquarters for the region. They're not even really being subtle about this.
Nobody's paying attention to what's going on in the Middle East. Nobody even knows where that is. Where's Iran?
Right.
What continent is Iran a part of?
Huh?
What continent is it even in? I mean,
it's in the Middle East. It's it's not Africa. It's next to the Middle East. It's there in Eurasia, but down in the other deserty part of Eurasia. I'll put a map up. It's next to Iraq.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
There's a war that happens between those two countries. Which, spoiler, it's our fault.
Is it our? Oh shoot!
It's our fault.
Well, what are you gonna?
It might be in response to some of these shenanigans.
It's so weird that we've made a little bit of a mess in the Middle East.
Now, 1977, there was a lot of resentment for the ousted Qajar dynasty, which is what the Mossadegh was a part of. So they don't really like the idea. The very religious end of the Islamic community doesn't like the idea of women having rights.
It's still a very heavily conservative population.
They don't like the idea that they got their money taken away from them to give to poor people and women. They don't like the westernization that's going on in Iran.
Sure. Yeah, it's a conservative populace.
Doesn't sound like anything that we could relate to at all.
No, thank
Countries in turmoil.
We've all moved past this stuff.
U.S. relations are made worse in the region when Carter says that Reza is beloved by all of his people in the TV, and he most definitely wasn't. Carter.
All the people they care about is what they meant. Right?
Yeah. Carter and the United States are, deemed the great devil. So, it happens.
Oh, shoot. That's not ideal.
No, not ideal.
He shouldn't have done that.
It's made worse when, so there's a guy named Ayatollah Khomeini. So Khomeini, he's trying to lead a coup against the Shah. He has been ousted along with Mohaddin. He's part of that whole region group of people. He's very much religious zealot, for lack of a better word. He wants to get back into the region. So he's helping lead a lot of the revolt and revolution in this area. So much so that the Shah kind of has to flee the country. And he comes to the United States under the guise of seeking cancer treatment. which allows Ayatollah to come in, step in, take over power, and then immediately demand that the United States release Reza. And the Carter's like, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to give him back.
Well, he was getting treated for cancer, right? So
yeah, you're not safe to fly.
You can't just expect to be released from the hospital without a doctor's.
Medical note. Yeah, it's not going to happen. So, right. And again, this is in deep dive history. I'm hitting the highlights. There's a lot that goes more to this. I'm probably also butchering names. So Ayatollah, once he takes over power, there are a bunch of Iranian college students that are like, hey, remember that time that the CIA took over our government and ousted our leaders, and we didn't like that. And there's the embassy right there, and I bet you if we break into that embassy, we could probably find proof that the U.S., led by the CIA, led by the U.S., intervened and did a coup and interfered with our political system, and we don't like that, and we're going to make them apologize by giving them the proof and saying, hey, you got to apologize, which, stop right there. The U.S. doesn't apologize for shit. We are Bill Clinton sticking to that lie despite how much evidence is shown against us. Not with me. Picture this. We were both butt naked, banging on our mouth. It wasn't me.
No, you're going to get copyrighted.
I'm going to get copyrighted. Anyways, doesn't matter. Their first attempt to take over the embassy is going to actually happen on February 14th, 1979, which is called the Valentine's Day Open House, when the embassy is going to be stormed in Tehran, where they're going to capture a Marine named Kenneth Krause. By the way, if you're Americans and you have military personnel in diplomatic regions, probably don't have guys with the last name Krause. That just doesn't...
Give them a fake ID.
We're going to protect you from the Nazis, and then immediately put a guy with the name Krause.
Jackson. Those are all harmless. Roberts.
The head ambassador of the U.S. Embassy, William Sullivan, is going to surrender the embassy to the college students to save lives. We're not going to create a diplomatic incident. We're just not going to fight back. Just, sure, have it. Minister Yazdi is going to go up and say, hey, listen, probably not a good idea that these students did that, and force them to give it back after 3 hours of a siege. Krause, however, is tortured and tried for murder, and convicted of murder, and sentenced to death. But good old Carter, he's going to secure his release 6 days later. So this is the first crisis situation. Now, at this point, any logical American would go, hey, maybe let's close our embassy in the United States, get everybody the fuck out of there, because clearly the current Iranian government is not in the mood for U.S. shenanigans.
Man, that sounds like a coward talking, Tommy. You know the U.S. ain't?
But the embassy is also a CIA headquarters for the region. You can't just shut that down.
Nope.
So they don't.
That's right.
It's now November. We had ample time to fix this shit.
Government works at its own pace, Tommy.
But we don't. November 9th, the hostage crisis begins. Between 300 to 500 students begin gathering in large crowd and move towards the embassy. Minister Yazda attempts to warn the embassy to get the hell out. Like, hey guys, bunch of angry college students. Remember when that happened in February? Well, it's happening again. Get the fuck out of the embassy. And the CIA's like, this isn't a joke. This is actually true. Our incinerator broke. We have to shred these documents by hand. Give us a minute.
That takes some time. Yeah.
So they're in the.
How many do you think they had?
Shredders.
And they were not
shredders.
They were not as fast as they are today. Today you can really cook with them. They were slower back then, and I'm sure government paper shredders
were real effective. So Yazdi's attempts to warn him go off, ignored, basically. The students use bolt cutters to cut the chain on the gate, storm with the initial plan of just being able to sit in the embassy, you get the media there, make a couple
peaceful
of
protest after the initial breaking and entering.
Yeah, it's a sit-in. Get enough media attention.
Breaking and entering, and then a sit-in, but yeah.
As they're breaking in, the Marines are like, guns pointed at them.
They're
like, we don't mean you. Hey, look, we don't mean you any harm.
That's a bad look.
We're just we're a bunch of college students. Like we're just we're gonna sit in. We're gonna have a media in here. We're gonna take a couple of photos, and we'll get out of your hair. Again, the ambassador
stuff.
of of the embassy is like, I cannot be seen on international TV having the Marines mow down a bunch of college students. That will look pretty poorly.
Obviously. Even just pointing the guns is bad optics. Especially like back then, it's a lot of photojournalism, and boy, you can make that look bad.
Most of I gotta say this with preface. There are embassy workers in the embassy. A lot of them have already gotten out. 6 of them will escape without being caught, and we'll get into that story here in a little bit. The ones that are in the embassy are actively shredding papers and documents, and most of them are probably CIA. Like, let's be honest. They're doing
their job. It sounds like they're continuing to do their job in the face of terroristic threats.
So, like I said, 6 of the embassy employees are going to escape completely. There are a few that get out of the embassy but then get captured, but 6 are going to escape to actually a Canadian diplomat's house. They tried to get to the Canadian embassy. They couldn't get there, but they went to a diplomat's house, and he sheltered them. They then, through the Canadian government, the CIA, arrange fake Canadian passports with fake, the Iranian import stamps. They give them a sci-fi script called Argo, which they were filming in the desert, and that's their cover to get back out. And there's a movie.
They did make it. So this is legitimate. They made a movie.
No, they didn't make a movie. The movie there's a new movie. There's a movie that came out in like the 2010s about this called Argo.
So but
the movie Argo was fake and never got made.
Any
yeah, they got a really cheap. They imagine being the guy whose script got sold. Yeah, I sold I'm gonna make it big, and then the movie is it's a joke. It's a cover, a CIA plot cover. Anyways, they escaped without any questions or flags being raised. Like, it was, the movie makes it like they almost got caught when they got on the plane to flee out of there, but in reality, it was like without a hitch, as stupid as that.
Well, so they made it seem like, what was that one movie where the guy he escapes prison and gets on a motorcycle and stuff, and
The Great Escape. Yeah, they try to make it like The Great Escape. Yeah, it's not. It's literally, they had passports, a fake movie script, some camera equipment.
They just walked out.
They just walked.
It was Catch Me If You Can.
Yeah, they opened up the passport and went, looks good to me. Rubber stamp. Yeah, so it's not a good movie if you do it that way. Not saying that the plan wasn't cool, but it's not.
I get it. It was just a flawless plan.
Now, for the remaining of the hostages, they're going to spend 444 days where they at first are blindfolded in the embassy. May have been tortured, may not have been tortured. Iran keeps calling them guests, but then moves them to an actual prison. There are hunger strikes that
deprivation is torture.
Yeah. There are hunger strikes that some of these guys go on. There's suicide attempts that some of these guys go on. So good for the Iranian people for keeping them alive, because they do keep them alive. I mean, that's
by force.
Yeah. Well,
unwilling. So I imagine the prisons then are much like you would see in Sweden, Norway, Finland.
No, they're not that. No, they weren't comfortable. No. Now, the college
more
students,
like in the United States.
Yazdi, when this all happens, he goes up to the leaders and is like, "Hey, listen, to Khomeini," and he goes, "Hey, maybe we should put an end to this like we did back in February." And initially, Khomeini's like, "Yeah." Wait, no, never mind. I like what the college students are doing. I'm going to support it and go on the fucking cameras and be like, "Yeah, full support. Iranian government's behind you." So now Yazdi, who's a fucking ambassador, has to deal with this diplomatic shithole of an incident.
Yeah.
Now, so initially the college students, they got their list of demands. They go up to Carter and they're like, "Hey, listen, we just want you to admit to the CIA coup that took over our government in the 50s." Carter's like, "Nah, we didn't do that. Prove it." So they took the shredded documents, went to a school with a bunch of children, said, "Hey, paste this back together." Pasted them back together, copied them, and were like, "Here it is.
They could have pasted them together in any way to make it say
order.
Anything.
Here's the memo. Here's the memos. This proves that you guys were involved in it." Carter's like, "Nah."
That proves.
They're like, "We're gonna go public with it." Carter's like, "I don't care. Go fucking public with it." So
nobody's gonna read that.
They go public with it, and he doesn't care. And then they're like, "We're gonna name. We know that some of these guys are CIA, and we're gonna name their identities and go public with it if you don't apologize to us." And Carter's like, "No. Fucking name them. They're already hostage at this point."
Now they're different people.
And then they're like, we're going to list the names of all the CIA agents that work in the fucking region because they've got those documents. And Carter's like, I don't care. Fucking name them. Who cares?
Yeah, tell me. I actually forget. Could you remind me who's over there? I haven't talked to him for a while. I've not been checking in like I should.
All these documents actually get listed and published in a book called U.S. Espionage Den, and it's available online if you so choose to read a bunch of fucking CIA documents from the 70s.
Sounds fascinating.
So, Carter doesn't care. Keeps saying, nah, do it. We don't care. Do what you want. Who gives a shit? Carter is going to try a military operation to free the hostages, which goes hilariously bad. It involves 8 RH-53D helicopters, that all of which suffer mechanical issues, including one that crashes, killing the crew. And so 0 people are rescued, and we're down like -8 from the
We're into the negatives. Yeah, this is...
Way to go, guys.
We're at -8.
It was such a ridiculous, like, we're going to fly these helicopters into here, and we're going to meet these gunships here, and we're going to fly over. It was so fucking convoluted. Anybody looking at that plane goes, that's not going to work. If anything goes wrong at any of that, it's not going to work.
Just send in some folks.
Well, they tried. They got a helicopter in, and it didn't work. The helicopters crashed. Now, you might want to know how the hostages eventually get released. Because they do eventually get released.
Can I guess?
Yeah.
Everybody just kind of got bored with it.
Yeah, pretty much. There are behind-the-scenes negotiations that are made using Algiers as, like, the intermediary. Like, they're the Switzerland of this whole thing. There is the Algiers Accords signed on January 19th, 1981, just after Carter loses his election to Reagan, literally minutes after Reagan gives his sworn-in speech to office.
He, like, goes,
the documents
sits
are
down
signed.
and signs something.
That's weird and suspicious. That's odd timing. Why then? Why minutes after a new president gets elected?
I don't know, tinfoil hats. Let me know.
Well, we'll get there. So what's the accord say? This is what took 440 days to negotiate. U.S. is not going to intervene in politically or militarily in Iran. U.S. is going to remove the freeze on Iranian assets and trade sanctions. Both countries would end litigations between their governments and citizens. So basically all litigations that are on the table between all parties, they're going to be ended. The U.S. is going to ensure that the court decisions regarding transfer of any property from the former Shah would get ended and concluded, and all that property goes back to the Iranian government. And Iranian debts to the U.S. institutions would be paid. None of which seems like that should have taken 3 days.
Pretty simple.
A long weekend to negotiate.
But, politicians are stubborn, and they don't care about people. So
There is some evidence to suggest that Reagan's election team meddled in the proceedings and delayed the release until after the election to tank Carter's chances. Because if Carter can't get those hostages free, there's no way he's going to win re-election. And you might think, tinfoil hat. Except Reagan's administration as president did those exact same tactics on multiple occasions and got caught doing those exact same tactics.
Oh, no. That's not. I thought you were going to have some other conspiracy theory. I completely believe that Reagan was a scumbag.
Yeah.
That's the easiest thing to believe in the world.
Also, before the year's over in 1981, those accords are breached by Reagan's administration.
Not even a little bit surprising.
So the aftermath, Johnny. Hostages are released and flown on Air Algeria to Algiers, where they're transferred to Warren Christopher's custody, and then back to the United States. The Iraqi-Iran war is going to occur, with the U.S. giving a massive amounts of support to Saddam Hussein, including weapons of mass destruction, chemical weapons, to Saddam Hussein in this war with Iran.
I grew up and Saddam Hussein was the bad guy, Tommy.
Yeah, Johnny, he was our ally and friend.
Break that down real quick.
Ever.
Tell us all about it, Tommy.
Well, in a short note, we put Saddam Hussein in power.
I'm kidding. Stay on topic. That's a different episode.
It is a good episode.
Focus.
Especially with our weapons commission.
Topic.
And
Iranian missile crisis. Hostage missile crisis.
The hostages, once they get back to the United States, are given lifetime passes to any minor or major league baseball game. Yeah, 444 days of life gone, and you can go to any baseball game you want.
That's not real. Shut up. What actually happened?
That happens. The hostages unsuccessfully try to sue Iran in 2000. The U.S. government does pay each hostage $50 a day in compensation, which is about $200-ish in today's money, which isn't great, but it's also better than nothing.
I should do this in my head.
There is a law in 2015 called the United States Victims of State-Sponsored Terrorism Act that's going to bump those payments up to $10,000 a day and a $600,000 lump sum to the victim's family. This is like immediate spouse family.
Go. That's now we're talking.
Interpretations of the law and shenanigans in U.S. law means that only about 18% of those hostages and their direct families have been paid today.
When I have a structured settlement and you need cash now.
Cool Someone goes, oh, yeah, that's what happens.
That sounds right.
So for 444 days of being tortured, blindfolded, and put into an Iranian prison.
Yep, you get 20.
You get baseball tickets.
Million years.
But it's any team. It's any game, Johnny. Any minor league. You want to go to the Savannah Banana? Well, probably not, because they're not really a part of the MLB.
No, they're not.
You want to go to the Indianapolis Indians? Free.
Be a little bit racist if you want to be.
That's something. You could go to the Reds or a thing that's close to us, I guess. If you like baseball, it's not my sport, but yeah, hey, whatever. You get free baseball tickets if you can become a hostage.
That's it for this week in Historic Hindsight. Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review, and join us next week when we talk about the Richmond prison escape. The Civil War.